you have so many members that, you know, are unable to attend right now. So that would be great.
Okay. Yeah.
And you know me, do I care about that kind of stuff? No. But thank you anyway.
Good.
I just want to say, you know, I live in Southern California in the land where when they predict a half inch of rain, it's Storm Watch 2021, literally. I mean, weather is probably like the biggest crazy thing that ever happens here is if there's going to be a storm, everything goes crazy. But that being said, I did have storm damage from this winter, so I've been working on that. You know how you start something and it's like, okay, I'm going to stain that new wood that they put up, and then all of a sudden all the rest of the wood looks a little dowdy, and the next thing you know, you've stained like 3/4 of the deck. Yeah, that was me yesterday. Now I have to finish the rest of it. Bob, are you still there?
Yes, Bob is still here.
Okay, I can share screen. No, you need to allow me to share screen, please.
Okay, sorry. Yes. Let's see.
So what I'm going to show you is a couple PowerPoints that I did for Clayathon and for myself too. And the first ones are going to be, first one I'm going to show you is my tips and tricks one. And then I want to show you the new colors coming out.
Cool.
Yes, there's going to be 14 new colors this year in Primo and Souffle. Yeah. And, you know, we were talking about the whole thing about clay being so scarce. And, you know, I was telling them, I said, Sculpey has added a second shift and a weekend shift trying to keep up. I go, but there's so many new people who have come into clay. And as guilds, we need to find those people in our areas and bring them in. And I'm not really sure how to do that other than if all of your members would post on their Facebook page that they're a member of the Houston Polymer Clay Guild. You know, I am going to tell my members at our meeting next Saturday, hey, everybody post you're part of the San Diego Polymer Clay Guild. I said, because we need to find those people. We need to find them and bring them in. And then the other thing are the clay hoarders. It's the same people probably who are buying the toothpaste and everything. They're hoarding clay. I saw a post the other day, the woman made friends with the manager at her Michael's so that she could find out when the shipment was coming in. She bought the entire shipment of clay and then was gloating about it on Facebook. Now, you know, in 2 years, when that clay starts getting hard, she's going to go in and buy the same colors and take that receipt and return that hard clay, and it's going to go back on the floor, right? And then we're going to have this whole thing with, I just bought clay and it's really hard. What do I do? That's what's going to happen. All these people who overbuy. And somebody brought up the good point. The new clayers don't understand you don't need a lot to make something. So they're buying all this stuff. And they don't realize a 2-ounce bar of clay goes a long way, as we all know. Plus we know, you know, how to do, you know, how to work with our leftovers. My scrap clay is my favorite thing. Okay, let me share my screen here. And I'm going to here. And I'm going to say slideshow. Okay, tips and tricks. Or I take you down my rabbit hole of playthings. And, you know, my kids used to call my house the rabbit hole because I collected Alice in Wonderland things. And I do actually have a 6-foot-high red velvet chair next to my Alice in Wonderland things, which is very popular at Christmas time, I can tell you. First up, tips for earrings. Oh my God. Are people wearing all these earrings that are being made? It's amazing how earrings just all of a sudden blasted off. I think part of it is, a lot of it is, if you're buying a gift for somebody and
sell the house.
They earrings are good. They're gonna fit, right? They don't have, you don't have to worry about that. So, God, I keep answering these with the link to this. How do I attach the post thing? I call it the liquid Sculpey sink. I know, I see Laura going, oh God. They ask the same questions over and over, all these new people. So what I do on either unbaked clay or baked clay is I put a drop, I slowly push the post into it, let it sit, and it's going to come up over that post metal. And then when you fire it, it looks just like the picture on the far right. And from my daughter-in-law, who I send out, most of my earrings to, she says they find it super comfortable because you know how a liquid Sculpey, when it's baked, has that little bit of give to it. So they don't feel like their ears are getting pinched with it. And then, this is probably translucent or clear, whichever one I had, but I could have used black. I could have used gold. You can use whatever color you want for it. And those are not going to come off because, as you can see, I have liquid Sculpey touching the Sculpey underneath it. And that's going to be fully bonded. And I have taken those things and pulled and taken pliers and pulled, and I couldn't get them undone. So these are some of the earrings that I've made. I send them to my daughter-in-law, and the idea was my daughter and son are posted over in Japan. And the idea was that she would keep her favorites and then she would give the rest away to her friends because they have been on base lockdown. It'll be a year next month. You know, those girls want to shop. So I said, just take them and open, put a little table out, So another way to deal with the post is to put it between a small and a larger piece of clay. So the top two pairs of earrings have the post just behind those cute little button upper pieces of clay. And then it's way easier trying to add to the back. It's way easier than trying to add to the back and cover with another piece of clay. This works so much better. And then also if you put, the deli paper over before you cut that top circle so that it rounds the edges, it really makes it look button-like. But then, that's what I just said. People want to know. People are talking to their dog too, Kylo. How does she bake them with the post in it like that? I use my Amazon box flaps to bake on. So I just cut them up into 2 layers or 3 layers. Then I take my etch and pearl and poke 2 holes to drop the posts down in. Now everything's sitting flat and I can bake it all at once. And that particular one right there, I've actually glued those together. I have some permanent ones now. You can see the one in the center there. I just took blue tape and held it together until I decided. I've been working on trying to get those holes spaced so that I won't have clay having to overlap, but maybe I can get more than 2 holes on each piece. Okay, ear wires. Have you ever tried to assemble earrings and the ear wire, the loop that you attach the ear wire has is going the wrong way, and you're either forced to add another jump ring to it and you don't want to? This is how you fix it. You turn on your dual speed heat gun, set it facing up on the table, get 2 pairs of pliers, grasp the wire as shown below. You see how I have it so I'm holding both pieces of that wire firmly? Hold it over the heat gun for about 6 seconds. Then use your other pair of pliers to turn that loop. Then set it down gently and let it cool completely. And then you can turn your wire any way you want to. If you try to turn it without heating that wire, because that's already been heat annealed, a lot of times they'll snap off. So 6 seconds, I can manage that. And my heat gun on for maybe 10, 15 seconds before I do it. Even I can live with that. I just make sure I have it facing up because a couple of times I tried to hold it in my hand and do it. And my dogs are underneath my clay table.
And if you don't have gas, you can connect to propane and save the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I made that decision because we need it.
We don't need it.
Hmm?
We don't need it.
Somebody
Well,
needs
we need it to know what's going on.
Well, exactly. But so far, as I said, first time.
Hey, Bob, can you
in
mute
8
everybody?
years that we lose power. in this house. First time.
Really?
We lost power once because something happened here. 30 minutes, fix it.
Okay.
We received the email from Center Point. We're sorry that we are working on.
Okay.
If you have multiple parts, I always had trouble lining things up and getting the holes in them correctly. So I had index cards that had graph paper on the back, and it finally dawned on me, if I lay it out on the graph paper, I can see exactly where my holes are going to go in each piece. And I do most of my drilling after it's baked. I use a hand drill to go through, and I have a small piece of wood, and I just set the graph paper right on the piece of wood and line my pieces up and drill them. You can do the same thing with a needle tool. And then you can be assured that your pieces are all going to hang correctly. For a while, I was having to make extras of each of these connector pieces because I was afraid I was going to get the holes wrong again. So my graph paper really saves me. And you can see in this one down here, I'm drilling with my hand drill, and I can see exactly where my holes are going to go. And that's really important when you're doing big constructions like the one that just popped up over here. You need to know exactly where your holes are going to go and have them line up. Then I have a lot of people ask me how I get that center piece, that center solid circle inside the bigger one. And what I do is when the clay is still raw, I wipe a little bit of liquid Sculpey, probably the clay adhesive, used to be Bacon Bond, the clay adhesive on both edges there, and I push them together and put it on a tile and let them sit overnight before I bake them. If you want to have clay that adheres permanently like that, put a little bit, it doesn't take a lot. I mean, you're just wiping it on with your finger and then let it sit overnight so those plasticizers can leach into each other. And those circles are going nowhere. They're on there. But I do recommend putting it on a tile or a non-porous surface to do that. Otherwise, the plasticizer, the plasticizers are going to leach out of your clays if you have them on paper overnight. It's one of the few times I'm okay with letting things sit overnight. Usually I want to make things, bake them, and wear them. I have no patience. Okay, so I just talked about that. Okay, the bigger the jump ring, the larger gauge wire that they're made out of. And we need visual space between components. But then we end up with these unsightly big holes that, I don't know, they bug me. I don't want holes that big. So oval jump rings really help. They give space between the holes or the components. Rings and Things and Fire Mountain Gems has some great ones. And 5x7mm 19 gauge is good for earrings for the larger size. And then the smaller versions are great for linking bracelets, because the way that you see that the edge where they connect together is not on the pull sides. You have less of a tendency for that to slip and fine wire to come out. I really like using the oval jump rings. And you can see on the bracelet here, I have the ovals down in between here. And for a long time, I had the hardest time trying to figure out how I could do this, because my ribbon crimps that I use are very thin wire, and my round jump rings would slip out. I would double them up all the time. In fact, I still doubled them up until I figured out I didn't have to. And the clasp on here is called a snap clasp. And I use these a lot on bracelets because they don't take so much real estate, if that makes sense, on the back of my wrist, and they're fairly secure. Another thing, if we're talking about findings, little things like labeling the sizes on where you keep your jump rings is so helpful, especially if you're writing tutorials or you're teaching. I don't want to guess, 3 days from now or a week from now, if I'm writing a tutorial, did I use an 8mm or a 9mm? I want to make sure my information's accurate. So this makes it really easy for me. And then if I need to order something that size in a different color, I know what size to look for. I'm really bad at converting millimeters. I have a little cheat sheet for it.
Syndee,
Yes.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
I use one of these, and this is actually one I'm
Oh.
using for vitamins, but I have another one, and I use my label maker to write the sizes on it.
That's nice. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. I love that. Oh yeah, label makers. If you don't own a label maker, it's a game changer.
I can't live without mine.
It's a game changer. I tell you, boy, and especially for me because I was traveling so much. And so I would pack my bag up, and usually my bag is packed, but sometimes I put things in, you know, extra things, and then I get back and I don't unpack my bag anymore, but I do take things out. Well, now when I take them out, I put them back in the labeled drawers. I don't reinvent everything every time. Yeah. So, no, I don't have to. Thank you. I'm a huge fan of cutters. I love using cutters. And these are some of the earrings. My daughter-in-law wears black mostly. So I wanted to make her a black wardrobe. So the top ones have antique gold findings. The others have gold findings, and one other pair has silver because I'm kind of fussy that way. I wanted to make sure she had something that went with everything. And then the bottom right one, she asked me to make some for her mom. And she said she was a big cowboy fan, the Oklahoma University Cowboys. And I go, oh yeah, that's right. And I knew it was black and orange, but I couldn't remember if she was Oklahoma State or University of Oklahoma. I knew my daughter-in-law went to OU. So I made the arc on the bottom, thinking it would be safe to show my daughter-in-law and say, is it OU or is it a rainbow? She goes, oh, it's a rainbow. So I did those. But when I made these, I was like, how come we never think to stack the colors and cut the center out like that top piece? That worked out so cool to do it that way. It was like, every day I find something new. So think outside the box with your cutters every once in a while. You can see on the left over here, I've used cutters to do all kinds of different things here. And then my little fish here on this hat band, I made with the same cutters that I made the two bottom earrings there with. It's the irregular triangle. And then I use the tiny irregular heart cutter to do the fins. And then of course my etch and pearl to do the eye. And this was a hat band. Jacquard wanted me to do some work with their new Prolex colors. So I made this hat band, and the hat band is leather, and it's got Lumiere all over it, and then these fish on it and some bubbles. It's really pretty. And I sent it to them, and they're like, well, that's nice, but it's got too many products on it. Too many of our products. We just want Prolex. And I was like, first time ever a company has told me I use too many of their products. But I was kind of happy because it meant I got to keep it too. So that's going to be going on a hat soon. And my hat bands like this, especially if it's leather, I can do this. I put those, what is it, Velcro, the little Velcro dots on, the stickum dots. So I'll put like 4 around it and then stick them to my hat so that it A, holds my hat band on, and B, if I decide I want to change it, they just pull right off. Okay, so we're still thinking outside the box here, or bump as it is for our tools. It always amazes me that people don't think of this. Hollow bead makers, you don't have to just use the bumps. I use the space in between the bumps a lot when I'm doing leaves and feathers and things, because then I get these really cool natural flowing shapes to stuff. And no two are alike, basically. I mean, you can kind of make them basic by just matching it on the bumps, but I kind of like when they don't match. And then down here on the right, you have scrap clay. Just put a little bit of foil on there, crinkle the foil up, and then dig out your embossing powders, sprinkle the embossing powders on there into the cracks, and they come out really cool. I love playing with scrap clay. Scrap clay, you know this one. Take your clays, twist it until the stripes become vertical, flatten it in your hand, and run it through your pasta machine. I love scrap clay. And then I love these channel bracelets too. Wow. I love making these things. And y'all know who Jane Dwyer is? She does those fabulous canes. She has an Etsy shop and she sells these really nice, heavy bracelet, brass channel bracelets that can look either gold or antique gold. They're not too shiny. They're not too dull. I really like them. And I buy whole sets from her all the time. She has squares. She has all kinds. Teeny, 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 teeny thin ones too. Okay, so like I said, twist until the colors are vertical, flatten it in your hands so that you can get it to where you can run it through your pasta machine. Add a texture if you want to, maybe add a little Prolex to it. You can see I use my scrap clay all the time to make these. I love to do it. And then this might not all be one piece that goes on there. Most of these are pieced together. And I do that for two reasons. A, I'm lazy. I don't want to do a bunch of clay to cut out one strip. And B, if I get tired of it, all I got to do is stick my X-Acto blade in there, cut it, pop it, and pull it off. The only thing holding it on there is just the way the clay holds to itself. And I've never had one of these come out on its own. Not even my sister-in-law's broke one of these. Okay, speaking of stripes, and I do love to do stripes. This is that Sculpey iridescent clay that they came out with. This stuff is a trip, but you can do this with any of the mica clays. So this is like a #1 layer, and I just start cutting pieces. And when it's, what do I want to say? The width of these is so small that it's pretty easy for me to cut the same distance, and then you invert every other one. So we're using the Mica Shift. You know that the bottom piece here is, we're seeing the mica's laying flat, and the piece above it that's darker is we're seeing the edge of the mica. So it looks darker. So then I just line these up, put it in whatever pattern I want. And then this is another one of my favorites. I get these on Amazon, these Pendant Findings. And I like to use these a lot for my stripes to work with. But this is kind of a fun project when you want to do something a little fussy, but you don't want to think a whole bunch. And you have a little piece of clay sitting on your table, or maybe 2 colors. I've done it with solid colors too, using 2 colors. And just cut your matchsticks. You'd be surprised if you keep your clay about, what's that, 4 inches, 3 to 4 inches. You'll be surprised at how evenly you can cut those matchsticks. And if you want to do something else with it other than put it into a metal finding, just back it on a thin sheet. You see, this is the Primo copper on the upper left. In the center, this is also the blue, the iridescent blue that I used. And I made the ear wires with one of the ear wire jigs, the little plastic, they look like little plastic squares, and they have 2 posts in them, 3 posts maybe. And then at the bottom, this is also what I do. I love these findings because I can use them for little bits of scrap clay, and they look great, and they're done. If they're for me, I don't even glue these in afterwards because, like I said, I'm kind of fickle. I might want to pop them out and put something else in. This has the new turquoise granite in it, and I included this purposely because I wanted you to see how much texture that granite adds into these mixes here. It really comes through. But I love the way the iridescence, how the Mica Shift works in the iridescence. Something else you can do with those strips. These were strips that I cut and just randomly wrapped them around bamboo skewer and baked them. And then I threaded them. I wear these guys all the time, and I get so many compliments on them. That took maybe 10, 15 minutes to do. Yes.
Syndee, Betsy wants to know where you got the findings.
Which findings? Oh, on Amazon. It should be, if you look up
The earring
No.
findings.
Oh, the
The bezel ones, the ones that you put the little.
Yeah, yeah. On Amazon, if you look up metal pendant bezels, you'll see some that are like the wide ones, and then you'll see some. Originally, I thought it was two put together with metal down the, metal down the middle, but those are the thin ones, and they are just light enough that you could wear them as earrings. And you can get those in silver, antique gold. Yeah. I find them, I have like a lot of them that on, but they're pretty easy to find on Amazon. I just look up metal jewelry findings, metal jewelry pendant findings, and they'll come up.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this one? Okay, I'm gonna stop share and switch to another one here. Oh, yay, this is the what's new one next. Okay, and I'm gonna go back to my Zoom and share screen. Except it shouldn't be that one anymore. Why is it showing that one? Oh, I can do this. There we go. So Sculpey told me that I can sneak peek for you guys the new colors. Of course, you guys know the Primo Turquoise Granite. That one's already out. This vase over here was made by, you guys know Amy Co, right? Amy Koranic. Yep. And you saw the pendants over here, and then down in the bottom center here, I decided I wanted to do a little bit of the cold fusion that I barely know how to do. I am not really. And then I didn't, and that's just doing terrazzo, chopping up scrap and pushing it together. And I love how the texture in that granite comes through. And then I didn't want to get out my stuff to age antique the copper, so I just used my Citadel paints on it, and it worked great. This is the Primo Mauve that just came out. I am not a big fan of pink, but apparently pink is the new neutral this year. Hello. And you see, here's another Amy Co down here. And this is when I do my New Color Tuesdays, I take my scraps and I always make something with it. And the mauve in there was nice, but what I really liked was when I used it in the background on there. It's a really good, what do I want to call it, like utility player. In the fact that it's not the star, but it really is a solid back for it that I really enjoy. It's an interesting color too, because it's not quite a pink, it's not quite a purple. It's kind of fun. Oh, the other thing is for Sculpey, actually anytime normally, when we want to photograph post earrings, we photograph them before we put the post on so they lay flat. And my way to get around that, because of course we want to put the post on because that's all part of it, is you know that children's craft foam, the sheets of children's craft foam you can buy at the hobby stores? You can get that in like a white color or an 18% gray color. And then you just poke the post through, put the earring back on it and hold it up and take your pictures. And two things. First of all, your earrings are hanging correctly. And second of all, the way that foam photographs, it's, you can tell it's soft. You can tell it's not paper, but it looks almost like it's like a white velvet almost. It's really neat the way it photographs. And then if you're really clever, you just use the same holes over and over again. But if I get too many holes in it, I can just retouch them out in Photoshop. And then if I have way too many holes or it gets paw prints on it, then what I do is I use it to wrap stuff to ship it to Sculpey. So I use it everywhere. Primo Pale Blue is coming. At first I was like, pale blue, but you know what? I'm kind of obsessed with this color now. It's kind of interesting. I really like it. It's not a blue that I think is quickly mixable. That's the interesting thing about it. And, you know, you can see my earrings there. It's just extruded clay. That was not the hard part. The hard part was figuring out how to add the hardware to it. But, and then on the bottom, they wanted me to cover a metal hook. And I was like, well, that's kind of silly. And I said, let me just make a backing for it. And it grounds the hook more. And I did that in my living room where I had caned. I did a whole bunch of Skinner blend canes when Primo first came out. And you know how you put all the dots together and it looks really cool. Well, my handle looked great, but I had all this cane left. So what I did was I built backers, just random backers underneath it. So I have these big cane pieces behind my handles. They're still out there. They're what, 20 years old now or something? But this is an interesting color. And as you can see, it plays really nicely with other colors. It looks like a shrinking violet, but it is not. It's a pretty bold color. Yay, Primo Mint. I love mint. And I love mint, especially with black and white. These are projects that I did for Sculpey. And one of them, they wanted me to paint with it. And they're like, yes, you can paint with it. I'm like, yeah, I know you can paint with it. Doesn't mean that I want to do it, but I'm intrigued to do it. Actually, it was pretty fun. I would do it again, especially on glassware like that. And this color, it's interesting. It's not cool and it's not warm. It can go either way. And if you know, I'm a big souffle user, and in souffle, I mix igloo with shamrock if I want a warm mint, and I mix it with jade if I want a cool mint, if that makes sense to you. But jade is also not a shrinking violet color. You know, we've looked at 3 pastels. Only one of them is kind of a shrinking violet, if you ask me, the mauve, but it's solid. But the pale blue and the mint, they're little starlets, man. They want to be front and center. I make a lot of bolo ties. That's what this one is in the bottom right. If you don't know me, I make a lot of bolo ties. I love bolo ties. This color. You know, when they send me these new colors, they send me lumps of clay in plastic bags. And I pulled it out and I go, why do we need another orange? And I looked at it, I go, it's kind of a cool color. I go, it looks a little like it's translucent a little bit, but what it does, look in the bottom right there. I write notes to myself and I photograph them. This is what I do in tutorials. I photograph, I take my New Color Tuesday chips and I have them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, and I put one in the photo with a sheet of clay and take a picture of it, and then I take it out and do what I need to with my photos, so that when I write that tutorial, I know what layer clay I used. And when I do color mixes, I photograph them like this, so I know what my color mixes were. But anyway, this burnt orange mixed 1-to-1 is like a corn color. It's a maize color. And then the more white you add to it, you start getting these beautiful, soft, buttery yellows that I have tried for years to get in our yellows, and they always look greenish. And then the opposite way, if you add more burnt orange to the yellow, you get these vibrant oranges. So what I did for this vase at the top, they wanted me to do one that was like, had a stripe, solid burnt orange bottom and a solid white top, but this vase was 22 inches in circumference, and they wanted it as a project for a beginner. There's no way a beginner is going to be able to deal with a 22-inch strip of clay. So when I went to mix the white in, my white was a little old because we have no white right now. So I'm like down in the dregs of my cabinet pulling out clay. It was a little old, and when I tried to mix it with this color, it made these mottled areas. And this is when I first started seeing all the different colors you can make with this. So I decided to go with it. And I really liked the effect that I got. And then I found some other white that was not as dried out, so I leached it so I could do this. and it came out really cool. The pendant in the upper right, that is the burnt orange mixed with the yellow gold glitter. And look at, it's a color change again. It's still an orange, but it's a different orange. And then the bottom left, that's just the straight color that I baked so that I could do some dot work with white paint after it was baked. It looks like yet another color. This is a really interesting color. We're going to be able to have some fun with this one once we get all our clay colors back. Once we have clay again, period. Primo, forest green. This is another color that changes. I really like the way it looks. If you look at what's going to be the bracelet up here on the right that has the balls and everything on there, those green balls are what the color looks like after it's baked. In the center, you see those pendants. I've done the same thing where I took the leached white clay and put them together and sandwiched it and ran it through so it broke up on there, kind of like a crackle. But you can see how it's shifting in there, and I'm getting these, what would you call that color? Almost like a turquoise green in there. The bracelet on the right are twisted scraps. Look at all the shades of green in there. That's all from that forest green. And then the base over on the side with the gold, you can see the darker parts of the straight forest green. You get some beautiful greens and golds through there, almost brasses in it too, that are just lovely. Those leaves are just made with a teardrop cutter. And then once I cut the clay out, you know, it's just loosely marbled clay, teardrop cutter. And then I just drew the center vein in and made the cuts on the side, and then you just pull it apart a little bit. Easy peasy. Primo forest green mixed 4-to-1 with Primo pearl. Looks just like the old sea green pearl. Anybody here remember the sea green pearl? I busted this box out of my china cabinet. I built this years ago. My sons helped me design it. This is the sea green pearl here on the dragon. And then down here was the solid version, the non-pearl version. And that's a dead-on mix for it. How long have we wanted sea green pearl back? Yay! Yeah. Yeah. So what about Sculpey Souffle? You know, that's my clay. Where's my new colors in that? This is Souffle Ochre, which, my God, I've like for 10 years asked them to make ochre clays for us, good solid ochres. And this is a nice solid ochre. I really like it, particularly with white. It works really well. And then on the left, they wanted me to make a wall hanging for them. And with the ochre, and of course the leaves are made, you already saw on the hollow bead maker, right? In between the bumps, that's how I get the shapes. And then I just used I forget what Dr. Ron calls it. It's the scratch tool. It's a tool and it's got wire bits on it so you can scratch on clay. That's what I use to put the veining in on it. Not anything particularly hard. And my tassels. You know, you can buy tassels by the yard in the upholstery departments of yardage stores. And if you hit them on sale, I mean, 1 yard of tassels goes a long way. So those are tassels that were cut off the ribbon that I tied on the bottom. The hardest part of this is they wanted it on a natural stick. I live in Southern California. We have palm trees and cactus. We don't have sticks. I actually had to go to the craft store and find somebody that worked there and say, do you have sticks? So I had to go to the store to buy a stick. I don't think that'd be a problem in Texas, but it is here. And then on the bottom, they wanted a pencil box, and I didn't, for a beginner, I didn't want to try to tell them how to do slab construction. So you know how we hoard things like shipping tubes and cardboard tubes? That's what I did. I put that sheet of clay on the inside of the shipping tube and baked it. Yay, I finally used one of my tubes. There's another project that I did for them. They wanted me to make a 2-tiered necklace and for beginners. It's like, okay. So I made some balls, and then I took the rest of the clay and I took the balls and you know how you put a skewer through it, a bamboo skewer, and you roll it and bring it out, bake it, and then pull the skewer out. When you do that with souffle, if you take those pieces that are baked and keep them on top of your oven while you're working and they stay warm, especially when it's warm, those things cut like butter after it's baked. So you can make super thin hishi, no problem. It's so easy to cut those. And so I have 2 sizes of hishi in there. You see the thin ones at the top and the thicker ones down in where the balls are. And the balls were just using circle cutters to give me the same, you know, the same amount of clay for the different sizes and rolling them in my hands. But so that's something else to think about too. But that's a really fun color. I like this ochre color a lot. My favorite color. This is Souffle Ivory. Do you remember when Souffle first came out, they had a color, I think it was called Sandcastle? Sand something. And it was just a little different than the white. This one is a lot more different than the white, and it is a gorgeous color. Gorgeous. So you see what I did for them here was I just sheeted out the ivory, and then I extruded, just extruded threads, not too thin, of 18 karat gold and pearl, because that's the colors they wanted me to use with it. And I laid it on top, and then, you know, of course, I put a sheet of deli paper on top and just pushed the threads onto it. Super easy to do. The harder part was doing the construction on this, but oval jump rings saved the day. But this is such a beautiful color. Again, if you look at the wall hanging here, this is the ivory in some of the feathers here. And then that beautiful soft blue in there, you can see over there is sea glass, 2 parts ivory to 1 part sea glass. And it makes that beautiful soft blue. So we're going to be able to get some really nice soft colors that I don't count them as a pastel. They're just a soft version of a color. They wanted me to make like the wooden bead strand using the clay. And I was like, this was before the clay got really precious in the stores. I was like, that's going to be way too much clay, you guys. So let me add in some wood beads. And I like the way it looks with the wood beads. And I especially like it with the extruded clay wrapped around our clay beads too. That I think worked well. I forget that I like to work with extruded clay, and then I get all into it, you know. So this is in Sculpey Tools. This is something new coming out. This is a jewelry design template, obviously made for earrings. There are 64 different shapes in here. Actually double that if you figure the negative and positive space. I had to work with the prototype for this, which still had the bump outs in it that I had to like take my X-Acto blade and cut down. These are surprisingly easier to work with than cutters, especially on the arches. I've never bought a pair of arch cutters that both sides of the straightaway were the same. And that drives me crazy. These are really easy to use. And the great thing is, it's $5. If you want to teach an earring class and you don't want your students using your cutters, this is going to be great. I really was impressed. And half the time when I look at something that, you know, they send me, I'm kind of like, eh. And then I have to use it for projects and I'm like, shoot, this is really cool. So that's one way to go. And I think that's oh no, I forgot Jacquard. You know, I've worked with Jacquard for many, many years as well. And they came to me and said, hey, we have some new Prolex colors. Do you want to do some projects for us? And I was like, heck yeah. So the new colors are Knox Gold, Dual Blue Purple, Dual Aqua Blue, and Hot Copper. Duo Green Yellow, they brought back. It's not a new color, it's an old color. So if you have Prolex, you probably already have green yellow. And the earrings on the upper right were all made on black souffle using the Prolex. And you see the hot copper, that dual blue purple goes purple on black clay, and the dual aqua blue goes aqua blue. Actually, I wouldn't call it really blue, but the Knox gold and the hot copper, yeah, I like those colors. Then I asked her what they had in Pinata, and she says, well, we brought out some new colors last year. And I'm like, I didn't see anything about them. So she says, we brought out colors that are difficult to mix. So it's golden yellow, pink, coral, teal, and blue violet. Some of those I don't think would be that terribly difficult to mix, but then if you try to mix it, it is difficult. But the coral is definitely one that I can't wait to use, and the teal. And then I love using the gold and silver metallic pinatas. Have you guys used metallic pinatas before? Oh my God, they're such a trip. They are so different from anything you've ever seen. If you look at the pieces in the center, the blue with the gold swirls on there, that's the blue metallic Sculpey, liquid Sculpey, in their jewelry molds. And then I took the gold ink and I used the Japanese style toothpicks. So one end is pointed and the other end is blunt. And I took the blunt end and dipped it in the ink and put like 4 or 5 drops on there. As soon as you put it on there, it starts to bubble and it wants to skin over. And then I just took the pointed end and kind of drug it through the top of the clay, and the clay held it in place so I could bake it and get that effect. And then I find out they have copper and brass too. So I'm waiting for those to come in because I've ordered them and they're on back order. Hey, just like clay, inks, paints, all that stuff is all on back order right now, short supply. I should have called her and asked her to send me some. But the metallics are really fun to play with, particularly with the liquid clays. They're a trip and a half. Oh, here's how you find me if you want to take a picture of this or whatever. I have a blog. I am on Facebook and Instagram, Pinterest, and I have a newsletter. None of which I post randomly to all of them. The only thing that you see me on daily is Instagram, which goes to Facebook for my 3x3 photos, which sometimes have clay, but not all the time. And oh yeah, at the top of my blog, if you look at that picture there, there's a black line under the 3 pictures on top. It says home, about, class info. If you click and hold on class info, that's my super secret spot for my good friends and my students. And I technically consider you all students now. And that's where I put my tutorials and my Sin's favorite things and all that kind of stuff. Okay, I'm gonna stop share on that one. Any questions on this stuff? What colors do you guys want Sculpey to make? What, Betsy?
You said you were going to make a list, and
Yeah, I am.
so many people were popping in, but I'm going to repeat my pitch. I would love to see the return of metallic red and blue. Really liked those colors. I miss them, and they, yeah. So there's that. Now I also, thankfully I finished Clayathon Monday right before the power went out. And I had signed up for Carol Blackburn's class and I couldn't even condition my clay, but I did get power back so I could at least watch the class. But in the course of things, since she had started with just primaries and she was using Fimo Professional. So, you know, of course, we're all there's only 24 of us in that setting. So we're all talking about what primary colors we like and what brands of clay. But the consensus I can share with you is that there would be great enthusiasm for Sculpey to make a true cyan.
Yeah,
The turquoise has so much white in it that
Yeah.
doesn't really do it.
yeah.
But and cobalt, we like cobalt, but a cyan would be just dandy.
Oh,
And
yeah, I sent that to him in capital letters.
okay. And the other thing is, I just wanted to ask about reds, because cadmium red, let's just not go there. And I like pomegranate a lot. And I have had, personally, I like mixing pomegranate 1-in-1 with fuchsia. And that's a good red, in my opinion. But, if it's a primary color, why not have a out of the package good red? So that's something I would like to see.
Well, the cadmium red, originally when the Primo colors were made, they were mixed to match the paint colors. So I don't know if somewhere along the line, when they quit, when paints and clays actually too, when they quit using actual cadmium to make the colors, because it's kind of poisonous, the colors kind of changed.
It's so
You know,
orange.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like pomegranate as well. I like pomegranate a lot.
Mhm.
There's another color coming that's in a red, but not quite a red, that is a very interesting color, but I don't think people are going to want to use it to mix with. So a good red, and I know the cyan for sure. I've told them that. And the thing is, they're making them in Sculpey 3. They have a great cyan in their turquoise that they have. They have a dark turquoise. And I told them when they sent me that, I go, why isn't this in Primo? This is what people want. So yeah, I do that all the time. But I have to say they do want to know what everybody wants tool-wise.
And I think we talked about this at Clayathon, but I really, really like the etch and pearls. There's so many things you can do with them, and they're so long that mine are all bent. If they make them shorter.
Yeah, and I told you what I did. I cut the tips off so they would fit in my toolbox. And then I discovered that if you do have to put a hole in your clay before you bake it, that blunt tip is great, because first of all, it gives you a clean hole. It doesn't look like a wound. And because it's blunt, it actually puts the hole all the way through for you, where a pointed needle tool doesn't, and you have to flip it over and do the other side. You get a much cleaner hole with that blunt tip on the etch and pearl. But I agree with you, they're too long. And we had talked about this. I really, really want like soft corner triangles and some ovals. And somebody mentioned squares at Clayathon too, soft capture squares. Those would be really cool too.
And I also have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
Clay's been in my life for quite a while now. And so I have some very old product.
Uh-huh.
And when it comes to clay, I like it because it's not squishy. So I'm fine with that. But some of my TLS is so gummy. What do you recommend to soften that up? Does diluent or clay softener help? Is that a good thing to use?
You can put diluent in it, but if your TLS is gummy, I would keep it for an adhesive.
Oh, I still use it, but I just,
Yeah, I use diluent a lot in my clay. I think most of you know, especially when I use it in the molds, like the lace molds and stuff, because it makes that liquid clay incredibly flexible after it's baked. And I really like that part of it. And also, if you have bar clay that is a little dry and hard, you can slice it. When I cut up my clay, I take my 2-ounce bar clay, and here's my bar clay, and I set it up this way, and then I cut it into 3 pieces. And then you can take those 3 pieces and take your TLS or your clear and rub a little bit across the surface. You can do both sides of it if you want to leave it on a piece of plastic, like the deli paper, and then put another deli sheet on top, let it sit overnight, maybe even 2 days, 3 days. And what's going to happen is that liquid clay is going to absorb into the surface and make that clay really nice and pliable and incredibly strong after it's fired. Incredibly strong. But you'll be really surprised because it will absorb completely into that clay. You will not be able to, it won't be sticky on top.
Okay, thank you.
I started messing with it, trying that, and then I went to take a class with Claire Moncel, and she uses it as part of her projects that way. So I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. This really does work. And if you ever get the opportunity to take a class with Claire, she's amazing. So any other tools? What else did we talk about tool-wise there? I'd like some more blades.
Zigzag blades, not wavy, but zigzags. Because Lucy Clay has stopped making those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah. I heard this from Jana Honorova, who is in the Czech Republic, so she ought to know everything that goes on there. But she said that they're no longer making them. And those could be some kind of fun effects.
Right. I have some that I bought at the Japanese market that are, they were designed to cut shapes in fish cake. And so they're about this long and they're about that deep, and they have like a running handle on top. And I have zigzag and I have curl. And I took a picture of it and I sent it to Sculpey, and I'm like, why don't we have tools like this? This is great to cut edges with. And we're not going to be cutting for most things more than that deep anyway. And they're like, oh my God, can you send those to us? I'm like, no, but I'll buy you some next time I go. Because I think they're like $3 or something. So I sent some to them and I said, this is, you know, they're the perfect length. And so, and the zigzag one cuts pretty sharp zigzags. And I'll bet you could probably curve that too. Not a lot, but probably a little bit as well. So that would make it less expensive. It doesn't corrode, which is my issue. My blades corrode. But then you could do all kinds of shapes. Hey, any of you guys have 3D printers? Make us some. My kid in Japan has 3D printers. Keeps saying he's going to make me some cutters. Okay, I'm going to stop share. Are we going to talk photography now?
Entonces, y ahí sí, esperar entonces a mañana.
Okay. We're going to talk a little bit of photography now, okay? Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to get out of that. There. Oh. You know, all the best laid plans here. Photo tips. I'm sure you guys probably know, but I'll repeat it. I am by trade a professional photographer. And I went to the best school in the world for photography, Brooks Institute of Photography in Montecito by Santa Barbara, where we got a Bachelor of Science degree in photography. It was the only school in the world that offered a science degree in photography. So that's why I love to talk about photography. Never sit down at your play table without your camera. And for most of us, including me, my camera is my phone. Always take your step-by-step photos. It's way too easy to get into the create zone and forget those photos. Plus, if you're halfway done, or if it works out, you're halfway done with a new tutorial. But by having those, a month later, if you go, how did I do that one thing? It would work for this. What was the step for that? Then all you have to do is go back into your cloud and find those photos and go, okay, yes. And when you're doing photos for a tutorial, keep your immediate work area as clean as you can. I love to work in Photoshop, and I am like the clone queen. I love to clone stuff, but editing costs me time, which is money when I'm writing tutorials. So, and that's stuff, you know, that's time I want to do other things with, like play with my art photos and do it. So, and also don't rely on your memory. Remember I was talking about take notes and take pictures of the notes? I have those clay chips with the numbers on them that I take and put it next to the layer that I just made with the number. If it's a number 3 layer, my pasta machine, my little chip says number 3, and I take a picture of that. So now 2 weeks, maybe a month later, when I go to write that tutorial, I don't have to try to guess what I use. It's right there for me. And color mixes, I do the same thing. I write them on a scrap piece of paper with the colors there. I photograph it. And then I take them off to either use them or bake them if it's a new color Tuesday. I didn't rely on my memory a lot before COVID. I'm definitely not relying on my memory now. Cost doesn't equal better photos. Just because the camera's more expensive doesn't mean it's going to give you better pictures. You just have to learn to use what you have to its full capacity. I can't tell you how many people I know have really nice digital cameras and they never take them off the green setting, the automatic setting. They paid a lot of money for a lot of expensive technology they're not even using. My other daughter-in-law, who lives here, is a computer engineer, and she teaches computer engineering for the federal government. So I found this picture and I sent it to her. 1990 technology versus now. Everything's in our phone. But her response to me back was, God, that old tech is so cool looking. And I was like, really? She knew what the phone was, the watch, and the video camera, but I had to explain to her about the Polaroid, the pager, and the Walkman. She didn't know what those were. So in talking about, how many of you have digital cameras? Okay. You know, when you buy a digital camera, the first thing they tell you is how many megapixels it has. And the same thing kind of on phones. They want to tell you how big, you know, how many megapixels. But the truth is a 3x3 megapixel can print an 8x10, really nice photo quality. And my friend Jack had his quote in the PEI was, his 6 megapixel leaf Vallejo digital back in the day had been plenty. They used half of that capture file, half of that 6 megapixels to make a 25-foot billboard. And here's one of my billboards that the city put up with one of my photos. And there's a group of photographers. Well, we used to hang out before COVID down at the pier in the morning. And when this came up, when the city put this one up, I was down there one morning and they're like, I saw your billboard down there. And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, tell me that wasn't your phone. And I'm like, it's absolutely my phone. You know, as they're standing there with all their camera gear hanging off them, and I'm like, totally my phone. So that's how big they can go. And that was big. We just had a big windstorm a couple weeks ago. We had 50-mile-an-hour winds right off the ocean right there, which exploded all these. The piece I have left of this is about this big. Oh, well. In the old days, when we had film, we had to deal with a lot of math. We had reciprocity, we had ASAs. This is just like all reminders of what I had to deal with my film. And our cameras at the time for professionals were 4x5s. which means we shot 4x5 sheets of film. And there were 2 in each film holder. And that was what the pros use. And actually they still use them sometimes for catalog photography. So we've come a long way. And you see this big thing here, this big box, that was my camera box. That's where my camera was kept. I had to carry that everywhere with me. Okay, composition. The rule of threes has been a classic of composition forever. And on our digital appliances, almost every single one of them, you should be able to pull up a grid just like this on your viewing screen if you want it. Anything you want to feature should be centered on one of those blue dots. Conversely, anything you don't want to feature should be as far away as possible from those dots. So say you have a pendant that's really fabulous, but a so-so attachment on it. The pendant goes on one of the dots and the clasp goes as far away as possible from the dots. It's still there, they can see it, but they're not going to notice it as much. And here's how you know. A bad composition can lose your attention. When you look at that picture, which was from an old Sundance catalog, I was shocked. You can't look at anything but that yellow flower. And then your eye kind of wanders down finally and sees the pendant right there front and center. But the flower is right near one of the dots, let alone the whole stem goes right across the dots. And that's all you can look at that, plus the noisy background too. But you see how hard it is to try to look at that pendant? You want to keep going back and looking at that flower. So this is another one that I found. I believe that looks like that might be a polymer clay focal bead on that. But it's hard to tell because really all you see in that image is her name in the center. But I digitally moved it to put that bead closer to one of the blue dots, the focal points, and now you can see it. You see the difference? So quick photo tips. Use a good background. A great background will be the easiest to photograph on. Our modern cameras are calibrated just like our old handheld meters were, to an average of 18% gray. So your exposure and balance will be a lot easier and more accurate if you use like 18% gray, which you can actually buy scrapbook paper. 18% gray is like a medium gray. And you can buy scrapbook. I bought a whole stack of it, as a matter of fact, twice, that is just 18, medium gray. And that's what I shoot all my New Color Tuesdays on, because then I know I don't have to mess with exposure at all. But if you have to shoot on white, which I have to for polyform, you have to adjust your exposure for each photo, because it's trying to make that white background, which is the majority of the image, 18% gray. So you have to add more light to it. And conversely, remember years ago when we started in clay, everybody tried to shoot their stuff on black velvet? And then you would look at your picture and all you could see was lint and dust everywhere. It's because the camera was metering to make that black velvet 18% gray. So it was showing dust and debris on there that we couldn't even see. So conversely, if you're shooting on a dark background, you have to take some of the light out, because the majority of the image is the background. So that's going to override anything that's on it. I use computer paper to shoot on. I also use it to work on for my photos because it's a matte surface and I don't have to worry about reflections from my task light, but I do know that I have to adjust exposure. Shooting still photos is always my preference because that's what my training was. But still photos can also be used in a written tutorial. They can also be used in video. In fact, a lot of people, overwhelming number of people tell me they prefer videos to be a combination of both still shots and video. And you can extract good quality stills from your video too, depending on what software you use. So exposure. You know how I was saying you have to adjust exposure? If you look at that gold leaf on the left, that's what happens when you shoot on a white background with no exposure adjustment. That's 18% gray in the middle. So you know that that's medium gray. If you know RGB, it's 124, 124, 124. And then I adjusted my exposure on the right for the corrected exposure. You see the huge difference in that? I have to add light for a white background and subtract light for a dark background. So how do you do that on your phones? Actually, you can do it on some of your digital cameras. If you have a viewing screen that pops out, a lot of times you can do this on there too. When you hold your camera there, you touch your screen and look carefully. You might have to do it in like a darkened room to begin with. When you touch your screen, first of all, it tells you that that's what you want to keep in focus. And second of all, you're going to get this little scale pop up somewhere. Then all you have to do is move your finger to the plus to lighten it and to the minus to darken your exposure. And that's how you can adjust your exposure. I use this bowl a lot to shoot on because it's kind of like maybe a 10% gray in tonal value. So it's pretty easy to shoot on and I don't have to do a lot of adjustment. It doesn't always have to be gray, it just has to be in that tonal value. So you guys want to pull out your phones and try it on your camera? Thank you. Did you find it, Betsy?
No. I
Okay.
have my phone here and I press it and I don't see what I'm supposed to be looking
Okay.
for.
Somebody said,
tap
somebody
it and I
said,
get a square. I have an iPhone.
okay. Somebody said on an iPhone, you have to touch the screen and then take your finger away and it comes up.
Okay, I've got a little square and it's got a little, like a little sunburst thing next to it.
Yes, the sunburst, that's it on an iPhone.
And then,
That's your exposure adjustment.
and so I'm wanting to move it up or down.
Either way, see what happens.
Okay, down makes it darker.
There you go.
So I want it just a little bit darker.
On a white background, you want to make it lighter.
Okay. Oh, so it depends on what, I got you. I
Yep.
got it.
Yeah, a dark background, you need to subtract the light from it to get it dark. Because remember, it's trying to make that dark background gray. So you want to subtract it a little bit, but since most of us will shoot on white, you need to add light in. Yep. It's so easy. And it makes such a difference. I have had so many people write me from Clayathon and said, oh my God, I can't believe how easy that is. And it works so great. Depth of field. That's the area that's in focus. So again, you just touch your screen on the object you want in focus, and the background will drop out of focus when we're at such a short range. So you see the image over there on the top left. I wanted to show you that how I was putting the Prolex, making the texture there with my chisel tool. And that's sharp, but the jar of Prolex and the lid are a little bit softer. That's the depth of field. Depth of field is always 1/3 in front and 2/3 in back. It's just the science of it. So if you had a row of 4 people or 4 rows of people you wanted to take a picture of, you wouldn't focus on the first row. You'd focus on the second row. Because then you would have 1/3 in front and 2/3 in back. And then everybody would be sharp. So you can use depth of field purposely when you photograph as well. You see the locket down there. I really wanted to have emphasis on the metal and the textures on the locket. The chain and the key on the chain were kind of, they're interesting, but that's not what I was, not really what I wanted them to see. I wanted them to see the clay. So even though you can see the chain and the key, they're not sharp. So your focus continually will go back to the locket because it is in focus. And then in a long depth of field, like my pier here, you can see that everything is in focus. You get that crazy depth of field there.
So how do you get for the pier? How did you get that all in focus?
Because it's so far away.
Okay.
And also, you know, on your cell phones, I keep it, you know, on the big wide setting all the time. I forget what it's called, widescreen or something. And that's got a crazy depth of field on it. It's kind of almost like a fisheye lens. So this is something that you want to be aware of, especially if you're working real close to your pieces and you wonder why something's gone out of focus all the time. If you want something in particular in focus, like Betsy did, touch your screen. And I could do that on my DSLR too. So people go, would you use a light box? I hate that word. I hate that word. No, I don't use a light box. At our school, we had all the best equipment in the world, but they also taught us how to do everything with stuff from around our house. In fact, we would have assignments where we couldn't use any professional equipment. We had to figure out how to do it with stuff around our house. And the reason was because they knew we were all going to be starving photographers when we got out of school. So here's my studio setup. This is a Prolex vase that is old enough to drink. It's over 20 years old. And I use this to remind me, have you ever photographed Prolex and it grays out a little bit on you? In the photos, it doesn't look as vibrant. There's some property about Prolex that causes that. I have no problem using my saturation tools in my editing to make it look like it does as I look at it. There's just something about it that causes that in the mica. You're not crazy. Laura's like, oh, thank God, I thought it was me. So here's my studio setup. It's a white poster board, a TV tray. This is called a sweep in photography, where it's just a curved piece of paper. So you don't have a junction line back there. And I shoot an open shade in my patio. And that TV tray only had 3 legs on it too. I used it for years. And again, I'm adjusting my exposure for that white background.
Syndee?
Yes.
Is there a way to use a different color instead of white?
Yep.
A light gray
Yep.
thing, and so you don't have to adjust your camera?
Yeah, if you use a light gray, you probably won't have to adjust your camera.
Okay.
Yeah, when I shoot my New Color Tuesdays, I use that medium, not a light gray, it's a medium gray that's fairly close to 18% gray, so that I don't have to adjust my exposure and I can make sure that I'm getting proper exposure on those colors.
So where would you find, I mean, could you go to Michael's and look through
Yep.
their cardstock and find a medium gray?
Yep, you can. Like I said, I bought a whole pack of it in the scrapbook section.
Okay.
And also in the poster board, there's a lot of grays. You just get the medium gray.
Thank you.
And if you go a little darker than the medium gray, it's really an elegant gray. That is, you know, a striking gray. But you could use light blue. I mean, you could use any color you want to. Just be aware that you're gonna, you know, have a little color bounce back into your pieces. And then you see in the photo down here on the sweep, how on the right hand side, the clay's a little bit, it's in shadow over there, right? Because of the way light's falling. My kids, I called my camera dogs. They're both excellent photographers. My son, who was a chef, photographed the food for his restaurants all the time because he grew up around me all the time. And they were my camera dogs. So I'd say, I need a camera dog. And they would come out, pick up the extra piece of paper, white paper I had there, look at the light and hold the paper opposite of the light to bounce light into the shadows for me. If I needed
get
it.
my dog to do that.
No, I don't know. I don't think so either. I think they'd probably chew the paper up. But I've done it in when you're shooting smaller pieces or just on my own, I've done it that way too, where I, especially with the phone I'm pretty good at holding my phone and taking a picture with one hand, because I can also verbally command my phone to shoot. It just took a picture. Most of our cameras, if you go into the camera setup, you can set a verbal command for it. Randy Ketzel when I did a photo class with her one time, one of her options for the word was kimchi. So every time you said kimchi, it would shoot. So my kids like to, when they see I have my phone up, they'll start talking loud and saying shoot all the time. So it keeps taking pictures on me. But because I can verbally command it, I can hold the phone in one hand, take my white card over here on this side, bounce the light in, and you can move it to see the light actually change, and then say shoot and take the picture. Easy peasy. So here's some other images that I took. The one on the left side was a photo shoot that I did for Somerset magazine, I want to say. And this is a table that I have out on my front deck. And I always have flannel back plastic tablecloths on it because we get a lot of dampness at night. And what I actually did for this picture was I just pulled the tablecloth up. The sun was over on the side, and I realized that the light transmitted through just like my screen did. And it gave me beautiful, soft, warm light. And that's what I used to take the picture. And you see on the right there, I'm taking a picture of some coasters that I did for Sculpey. And I'm using my little homemade, God, that thing is old enough to drink too, screen that I made that I'm going to show you. There's my screen, and that is shower curtain liner. It's not clear, and it's just frosted. It's not opaque. They cost about $3. And that's PVC, but originally I had it on just a wooden frame, stapled to a wooden frame. And then I got some PVC and cut it up and made the frame, and I stapled it around. And then I got really fancy and I sewed it. So there's what is that called? I can't even think now. So that I can take it apart and travel with it. And then with your screen, you can go out in daylight or with one light if you're going to shoot indoors. And you put the screen between your light source and your piece. And as you move that screen up and down, you're going to see the light change, and you can focus it or you can back it up and you can focus it. So the center photo there, I'm shooting that red necklace. It's reversible actually. The red necklace on my concrete out front, and my son is holding the screen for me. And it's just like sunshine day, but you get this beautiful soft light that looks like studio light. But if it were raining and I had to shoot, I could just put a big light there and do the same thing. And on the bottom, you guys, Texas, you guys have a lot of outdoor table glass too, right? Glass tables, glass side tables, and it has that beautiful textured glass in it. It's really fun to photograph with. And if it's a table that seats like 4, a standard table, a TV tray fits right underneath it. And then you can take your colored pieces or textured pieces even of scrapbook paper and change your background color to whatever you want. And it's beautiful to photograph on. Gives you really interesting textures. And of course, it's a comfortable height to photograph on too. So like I said, our school taught us, we had assignments that we had to use stuff from around the house. And that's some of the stuff that I found that I use all the time. I met this gal at a craft show down here at the beach one time, and she had really neat sterling silver jewelry. It was different. And her company was called Silver by the Sea. But she had all these sterling silver bracelets and necklaces in black sand. And even saying it makes my teeth hurt, thinking about picking something up with links that's been in sand and hearing the grinding. So we got to talking and I said, I love your jewelry. I said, but your photos suck. Your display sucks. And she goes, well, what would you do? And I said, I'd find something a little more thematic for you. So we decided to do a trade. So what I did was one morning I was walking on the beach and I was thinking about what I was going to do for it. And it happened to be when our kelp was shedding. I went, silver by the sea, I'm going to make sea stuff. So I started picking up shells and things, came home, got my TV tray and set it up. So these are shot in open shade. Any of you guys shoot silver jewelry, silver often? If you do, I found out that you don't have to worry about reflections in it. All you have to do is desaturate the reflections and make them black and white. And we don't see it as a reflection anymore. As a matter of fact, it helps give it shape. If you look at the ring down there in the shell, the reason that you know that that's a round shape on there is because you can see my overhead patio reflection in there that's been desaturated that shows that that's a curve. So let me show you. Here I am, I'm on my TV tray again, and I have a sheet of plastic that I got that was for like kids to do art on. So it's like a big version of a plastic TV tray or placemat. And I got some natural aquarium gravel, put that down, brought home my bucket of kelp, had shells around the house, and that's how I photographed her stuff. Some of it wasn't necessarily ocean oriented. So I just used some flowers from around my house for the all sterling silver pieces, just to have a contrast in texture to the smooth metal. And again, I don't necessarily worry about reflections in there. The reflection on that pin on the upper right is the only thing. That black streak is really shows you that there's a curve to the edge of that. And of course, the hoop earrings down there that are super shiny, I just let them reflect the sky and the leaf so that you can see they were shiny. The upper left, those are black beans. And I had to take a black Sharpie and mark out the little white center of the bean and all of them. Oh, that was fun. Okay, if you do tutorials, you have to watch your pokey and sharp tools. In school, every time we had a blade, we always had the blade facing up out of the image and with the blade part facing away. And here's why. That make you a little uncomfortable? The same thing with pokey tools. Actually, this is an interesting one because here's the etch and pearls. And I just flipped the image. Don't you feel like you can see inside that etch and pearl better in the flipped image? I don't know why, it just looks like you can see that pearl shape in there better. And it's the exact same picture. I just turned it a different angle. So angles and line of sight. Having the fork pointing down is a whole different discomfort. Kind of makes me clench my belly button. So watch your angles too. We had somebody in school that did this gorgeous food shot of a pizza, and he purposely used a wrong angle. And I would see people as they walk down looking at the images, walk up to that one and then quickly step back. And this is why. Watch your angles. I couldn't believe I found one on don't you feel like that just hit your lap? I think that is just the funniest thing. I couldn't believe that I just found one on Google image searching that quickly. So we need to watch our angles with our jewelry and our pieces too, because we certainly don't want them to feel like the necklace is falling on the floor, or my God, can you imagine if you did it like a vase or something? You don't want that tilting and falling over. And this is what I mean. In the upper left, I use the angle for drama. In the bottom left, I turned it enough that it just makes you kind of dizzy. And I'm just shooting on a big tile. There are so many cool tiles now. And it's so, every time I go to like Home Depot and stuff, I go in the tile section to look, and I always come home with some tiles. And you see this tile, even though it's a beige, it's in the 18% gray area. So since we're talking about angles and lines, let's talk about visual pathways. In architectural photography, you need to have a visual pathway for people to visually walk through your picture. So you see the image on the left, you can walk through the left side, but if you try to go this way between the couch and the table, you can't get in there. You feel like you're kind of banging your knees. And then the bottom image, I have to think was done purposely. I hit my belly on that table, my face falls right in that bowl. And I have to think that was done on purpose. Do you guys see what I'm talking about? So next time you get a magazine and it's got like home decorating and stuff in there, look at the picture and find your visual pathways through there. Because they've put them in there for you. So how does that affect us? Okay, here's a picture of a pendant. There's no pathway to that. You can't visually get in to get that, to grab that pendant. If we open it up, it's a little better. We can visually get in now to that pendant from all sides. But here's a better way, because now it looks like we can reach in and pick it up. I love showing this one because I always see people going, oh, I get it. You see what I mean? So we always have to be aware of that. If you're making, say you're making a box with a lid on it, why not offset that lid just enough that they feel like they can pick the lid off? Other ways that you can do things. Use your flash to drop the background out. This is a Prolex piece that I made for Jacquard that was a full page ad for a long time in the magazines. And what I did was I just put it down on my wood floor, laid down on my belly and used my flash, and it dropped out my computer and my kids playing video games behind it completely because I shot it at night. Prolex does respond to flash better than it does natural light, by the way. This is what I did for Better Homes and Gardens. And this, so what I did was, you know how you can buy those big squares of ground covers at the plant nurseries and stuff? I bought about 6 of them and I planted them in one of my planters. And it was great because then I had all these different backgrounds that I could use. I got stuff that had little tiny leaves on it, of course, that I could use for backgrounds for pieces. And BHD wanted me to do some game pieces for board games. And this is when Sculpey came out the first time, was face and hands and feet molds. And I can't do anything else. So I just made big bellies and put them on. And then I had, when the polyester Easter stuff came out instead of the shredded stuff, it came out, they had colors. So I had saved a bag of it. So that's what I used for hair for these guys. And then I just washed them with an acrylic paint to match the hair. And BHG loved them. They said, but we can't use them because people would be offended that they don't have clothes on. They said, but can you make us 48 of these, please? Because we all want one. So I ended up making 48 of them for them. And I still have my guy around here somewhere. I think he's behind my computer. But so these are just ways that you can shoot around your house. You don't have to have anything special to shoot. Don't rely on your software to fix your photos. Get it as right as possible when you click the shutter. That was one thing that they beat into us in school. Get it right the first time. Get it right on the film. Get it right when you take the picture. It's going to save you so much more time. And I'm currently running Photoshop 5 on my desktop. I think they're at like Photoshop 25 by now. Because it's the last one I thought was solely for photographers. They're going to eventually probably merge Illustrator with Photoshop, is my thinking. I do have Creative Cloud on my tablet, but I don't play with it much. I use the Snapseed app on my portable appliances. It's cross-platform for Android or Apple. Don't rely on the filters. It's called Looks and Snapseed. Go right to the tools. Snapseed is made by the same people who made Nik Tools, which was the first add-on that you could get for Photoshop. So I'm going to show you a little bit about this. So when you swipe down on Tune Image in Snapseed, you get all these different things you can do. Contrast, saturation, ambience, which is warmth, highlight, shadows, warmth. You can do almost as many things in Snapseed as you can do in Photoshop. Details is the sharpness tool. I sharpen everything, but it's the last thing you do. Cropping, of course, you know, to select a portion of the image. Selective is when you put a dot in an area that you want to make a little lighter or darker, and you can select that at the bottom, and then it kind of does like a dodge and burn of that area for you. If you ever, did any of you guys ever do like black and white printing or anything? Dodging means you make it lighter, burning means you make it darker. So say you take a picture of something and gosh, on the side there, it's just got this one little dark area that's bugging you. Then you would put your you take your selection tool, put your little dot on there, and then dodge it, lighten it. The healing is like a clone tool without as much control. HDR escape is compression expansion tools that make the detail in the shadows and highlights. I almost never use that on my clay stuff. I use it a lot on my 3x3s. And so what that means is it's going to take everything in those two extremes of your shadows and your highlights and expand it so that you have details in both your highlights and your shadows. And of course, a vignette just means that it darkens or lightens the edges of your image. I use that a lot in my 3x3s too. And then exports where you save or post. I love Snapseed. And it's free. Can't beat that. Yes, Betsy.
Yeah, I've never, I mean, I just take like quick pictures on my phone. I haven't really I haven't been using it fully. And for me, because I'm so primitive, I think of editing pictures as something I'm going to do on my laptop where I can see it on a big screen.
Mhm.
But Snapseed's just a phone app.
Well, I have it on my tablets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why I call it appliances.
Okay, but not on
Yeah.
a laptop. Just on like an iPad?
You can get it on an iPad.
No, I mean, but you couldn't get it on a laptop.
Can you get other apps on your laptop?
No, can you get Snapseed on your laptop?
Well, Snapseed is an app. So if you can
Okay.
get any other app on there, you know, anything that you would consider an app, you can do Snapseed as well.
Okay, so on my iPad, I could take pictures with my phone and then edit them on my iPad?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah. What you can always do is go into your Apple store and type in Snapseed and see if it comes up.
okay. It just looks like it'd be so tiny and fiddly to do on the phone.
I don't really have a problem with doing it on my phone. And half the time I'm doing it on my phone with a leash in my hand and I'm walking.
Well, you're just too cool.
No, it's not that. It's just that to me, it's that easy to use to do it. But then I have to admit, sometimes I come back and when I look at it, you know, when I'm home, I'm like, that looks terrible. Why did I do that? You know?
Well, you've
So,
taken more
right.
pictures than I have too, so, you know.
Yeah, I take a lot of pictures, that's for sure. I
Thank
take a lot of pictures.
Thank you.
But So that's something that you can use on your phone. And then, there's other applications you can use on, like I said, I have, a very old version of Photoshop here on my desktop that I use. And then the super new stuff on my new I don't even know if that's I guess it is a tablet. My Microsoft Edge that I have too. Yeah. And again, that's where you find me if you need anything. Laura, do you have any questions for me? Photography wise? Are you guys taking pictures and like writing little tutorials for yourself or anything yet?
Oh, I'm not. I think about it once in a while, but no, I don't.
Well, now you know how to do it. And once you have your pictures, you're 3/4 of the way there.
Okay.
Because all you have to do then is open up your document, your Word document. You might want to think of a title. In your head, you probably already have a title for it. And then you write your little introductory paragraph. It might be something about how you came across this idea, or how it can be used. You can say, gee, I've made earrings, but this would make a great pendant too, kind of thing. Or I made this in blues and greens to match my living room, but of course you can use any colors you want. Try blue and purple, try, orange and red or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then you would make a list first of your clays that you use. And right now I'm cautioning people to not just put your brand and the actual color name, but put how many ounces of clay. Because generally clay comes in 2 ounces, but souffle is 1.7 because it's lighter, even though it's the same volume. But then there's also 8-ounce packages of clay. And there's, of course, the pounds of clay. And then a lot of the beginners are going to be buying those sets of colors that are 1-ounce bars.
Right.
So if we say 1 bar, what does that mean? 1 ounce, 2 ounce, 8 ounce? They don't know. So just put that. And then your tools. And then I don't count things like paper towels, spray bottle of water. I just put those in what I call have on hand. Because that's stuff around your house. Because I find that the longer that tool list gets, the more people go, I'm not going to do this. And it might just be little things like that. And then just put in your first picture and describe the picture. What's happening in this picture? And then put your second picture in and describe that picture. And that's all there is to it. Even if I'm just writing something that they don't necessarily want the step-by-step pictures, there are some places that don't want the step-by-step pictures. They want the finished photo and then how you did it. I'll still, when I write it, put the picture in because that reminds me of what that step was. Otherwise, I would have a hard time doing it. And then, of course, you can publish your tutorial or use it to teach a class with. And you can publish your tutorial. You can send it to magazines. A lot of magazines have editorial calendars on their websites. I know that Somerset does. And you can look at their calendars and see if it fits. You've made something, you're really proud of it, you're really excited. See if it fits one of the magazine calendars. And then they'll have where to send your pitch, and just send a picture of it and say, hey, I made this and I think it's kind of cool. And this is a beginner project, great beginner project. And it fits your calendar for blah, blah, blah. Never know, doesn't hurt. Or a lot of times I publish my stuff to my blog, or of course Sculpey, when I do the stuff for Sculpey. So there's lots of different places to put things. And there's a lot of creative people that are doing really creative things but they don't think that it's worthy of doing a tutorial for, and that's not right. Of course you can. And then they go, well, but you know, I learned this from Laura Bachman, and then I take it and do this twist to it. And I'm like, well, that's fine. You just say you're, you know, when you write your tutorial, you say, I base this off something I learned from Laura Bachman, but this is my twist on a classic. You know, that old saying that there's nothing new out there really is kind of true, especially when it comes to like cane work and stuff. Gosh, you know, cane work is cane work. It's the same techniques are used for it. It's just how you put the things together in the shape. So it's a twist on a classic. And if somebody gets upset at you, don't worry about it. That's one of the things that I did in my tutorial class was I told them the first thing was, are you ready to let it go? Because once you put it out there, it's out there. And now you need to come up with something new because it belongs to everybody else now. It's not yours anymore. So once again, class info down here on my blog is where you find things like send Holt photo notes. I have notes on paints, notes on photos, my favorite tools, and then a lot of technique stuff in there too, tutorials. That's where I publish my tutorials that I do for me. Okay, any other questions? How are we doing on time?
It's a little before 3, but don't worry about it. We've got, you know, whatever time you want to take, we can take.
Okay, well, I was just checking.
Syndee, I have a non-photography question, but if other people have
Yeah.
photography questions, let them.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I wasn't able to come to your session in Dallas a couple years ago, but I remember
yeah.
hearing that you talked, so I missed it, but I heard people talking about Citadel paints that
Yes.
you talked about there. And could you just briefly tell me a little bit about that? Because I went to their website, but they have different kinds. And I
Yeah,
had
they
no
do.
idea what I was looking at.
Okay, you know where it says class info here on my blog?
Yeah.
There's
It's-
one in there where I talk about the Citadel paints and I show you pictures and names and what they do.
Thank you. I'll go check it
So,
out.
my sons are both tabletop gamers, and my older son, particularly the one in Japan. And so they build these little teeny tiny miniature models and then they paint them. And I was at his house once here when he lived in Oklahoma, when he was stationed in Oklahoma, and we stayed up until like 3 o'clock in the morning watching these painting videos. And it just so blew my mind because he told me, he says, he goes, we don't paint the way you do. He goes, we don't flood paint a color on and then flood paint the shading in. He goes, that's not the way we do it. We paint the highlights and the shading and everything individually. And I was like, what? That's crazy. He goes, no, you have to have a mid-tone, a low tone, and a high tone at least. And then you work those colors together. So we talked about it and talked about it. And then I started looking at his stuff he had, because Citadel makes just base colors, of course, acrylic paint, but then they make all these specialty paints that do things like verdigris and make it look like rusted, rust and dirty metal. And they used to have one, I don't think they have it anymore, that makes it look like it's been buried in the dirt for 200 years. All of that stuff works on our clay.
Is it something you paint on before you bake it or after?
I usually do it after. You can put it on before, but I usually do it after. And
I'm just a supply junkie. What can I say?
oh yeah. And the design of all their stuff, when you buy their little paint pots, you open it up and there's a well inside it for you to put your brush in the lid. And then when you close it, they're double snap lids. You snap the back, you snap the front. I traveled I flew with those things so many times and they don't leak, you know, they're just so well designed. And I actually use their pin vise too to drill my holes, because I've never found a pin vise that was as comfortable and worked as easy as that one did for me. But was it, I think it was, no, it wasn't Dallas, it was Kansas City. And I said, you know, you guys in the Midwest, you have gaming stores, big gaming stores. And we looked up and they had one there called Tabletop. So we did a field trip, instant, let's go, you know. I come dragging, you know, 23 old ladies into this game store, you know, and all the game stores everywhere I go all smell like boy body odor and Cheetos. It's amazing. And they had the, do you know what greenstuffworld.com is? Okay, that's also for tabletop gaming, but they make a lot of, if you took an acrylic roller and texture cut textures in it with a laser, they have rollers that have rollable textures. Super fine. And we were looking at those, we were looking at the Citadel paints, and then we were looking at those as well. And the girl goes, oh, we have a bunch in the back. And so they brought out these baskets of them. I think they probably had $1,000 sales with just those women there. It was at least $600 because we were all buying all these rollers and the paints and stuff. I think we totally made their day. Probably their weekend sales, but that was so fun. And I was so jealous that they had that huge store that had everything in it. So for my son's 30th birthday, my daughter-in-law took him to England to go to the Games Workshop headquarters, which is literally in a castle. And I was really bummed that they didn't ask me to meet them over there and go with them. But she did, like, I don't know what you call it. She was sending me pictures as he was going through there, and his smile was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and nerdier and nerdier and nerdier until she got tired of it all, went to the pub to drink beer. But he took close-up pictures of all the paint racks for me so I could see the entire line, because I don't think any store carries the entire line that you walk into. And it was just so cool that I was able to show people all the colors and all the paints that they have. But that was really neat. One of these days I'm going to get to go there. I want to see it. It's in Nottingham if you get there. But Games Workshop is extraordinary in the stuff that they come out to use on models that we can use too. Good stuff. Any other questions? What else did I just find that I thought, hey, this is cool. This works. Oh, one thing I can tell you, you can't use liquid Sculpey on a jelly plate. It eats it.
Jelly plate.
I know.
Okay, Syndee, what's a jelly plate?
A jelly plate is used for monoprinting. It's a paper technique that they do. If you there's actually, so it's GELLI, and it's monoprinting that paper folk do to do collages and things. But I jelly print on clay. I have to stop share so you can see me. I jelly print on clay, and it works just as great. So it's just a tiny little bit of clay or a tiny little bit of paint on clay or on the jelly plate. I just swirl it on, and then I take my sheet of clay and slap it on there and take it off, and then you get really super cool effects.
Interesting. Thank you.
Do you want me to switch to my tablet and go outside and show you?
Folks, anybody? Yeah, Betsy will, yes. Please
Okay.
do. Well, while Cyndee's moving, I said my background is Tierra del Fuego. I was wrong. It is Bocan de Fuego. Tierra del Fuego is a land, a little island. Bocan de Fuego is in Guatemala, not too far outside of Antigua. Spent a couple days.
I'm
up
gonna
there.
leave and come back on, Bob.
Yep.
I just tried that the app on the phone for the pictures. It is so easy to use and it's pretty cool. The snaps.
The Snapseed.
Yes, yes. I just tried it. It's pretty cool.
Interesting. Hi, Sherry. Glad you could join us.
Hi, how's it going?
We're doing well. How's Dallas?
Dallas is it's better. It's probably a little bit better than Houston, possibly, but it's okay. Think we're all suffering together.
Yeah, fortunately, I think the hard weather is over in Houston. We're up to about 60 degrees last I looked.
Yeah, we are 55 right now.
Of course, the hardware stores are very busy right now.
Yeah, and try finding some water.
And that is, yes.
I was out
Yeah.
early this morning. It was still 32 degrees. My car was all iced over.
Oh,
Just gorgeous out now. But I went out yesterday to Kroger just to
mm,
kind of get some groceries because, you know, I did stock up before we went, but just kind of wanted to see. It was the saddest thing because Kroger had lost power for 4 days and they were just throwing
Mhm.
everything out, except
mhm.
flowers, which they said the floral arrangements are free, one per customer.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah,
nice.
but it was so sad though, because the flowers were pretty sad looking and the employees looked absolutely miserable and there just was nothing there. This morning though, I went to HEB and they were definitely on the way to getting, you know, they were filling up those shelves and it was nice to see. But they also had serious limits on how many of what you could get, like water and milk and bread.
Right.
But at least they had things. Kroger was just sad. It was,
Well, I actually had power the whole time and I actually had water until Friday. Apparently, my neighbor below me had a burst pipe, so they turned off all the water in my building.
Oh, no.
that's tough.
I know, that's rough.
Yeah.
I know other people have had it far worse. They've had many days without water and power, but it is rough.
Any idea when it'll come back?
I talked to the building manager today and she said that they didn't have plumbers for this weekend. She knows for a fact they'll have them today. She said they had somebody from corporate that will be looking at my building and the one next to it because we only have one issue. So they think they might be able to fix the one issue in my building and the one next to it in today or tomorrow. So we might get, you know, if nothing else, we'll get assistance Monday, but there is a level of hope. It probably helps the fact that she lives in one of the other buildings that has just one issue. So, you know.
Good. Well, here's hoping.
Yeah, because I mean, I called them. I've been around for a long, long time. So I kind of have, I'm hoping I have a little bit of clout. I've
Good.
been here well over 20 years.
Yeah,
Well,
you
you
should be at the
should
top.
have.
I've got just a touch. Because they said, is this Miss Sherry? Yes, it is. So,
You better believe it.
so I'm hoping that they get that resolved.
Good, good.
Yes.
And I'll be one of the lucky ones, of course. So, other than that, everybody else fare okay? You have power, everything?
We do now. Yeah.
Yeah. we all have, I think all of us have power and most of us have water.
Yeah,
I think Laura said you've got a broken pipe.
I don't, but my neighbor underneath me does.
No, Laura Liggett.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't have, but I did in 1989. It
That's
was
right.
ridiculous.
Sorry.
Good
Oh,
you
it
don't
was-
have it today.
It was
No,
Alex
we
that had
have
a
we
broken
have
pipe.
water. We just have to boil it.
Yeah, you got the boil order. Alex had the broken pipe. Right. Okay, Betsy, have you heard about or encountered the painted tree?
No.
It's where Babies R Us used to be over by Home Depot on 59 in Williams Trace.
Yeah.
It's the Babies R Us
Yeah.
building,
Uh-huh.
but it is nothing but a bunch of 10 by 10, 20 by 20 shops,
Oh, huh.
booths, artist booths.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yes. And they have some, last I looked, they had some open slots.
I didn't know about that. Thanks. I'm making a note here. Good to know. Thanks.
Okay, Cindy, how we doing? Cindy is still muted. There's Cindy. One more minute. Okay, I got to keep talking, huh?
Betsy, did you see my note for Snapseed?
I did, and it
Okay.
was. I tried to.
I'll
went,
find the
not
link.
downloading it from my computer.
What do you have, a Mac or a
I got a
PC?
Mac. I got a
Okay.
Mac.
Okay. I'll take a look at it when we get off of here.
But I was able to get on it on my my iPad.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
do a
a
lot on
big
my
enough
iPad.
screen. I'm
No,
just,
it's an excellent app. I have it
Yeah.
already on my phone.
uh-huh.
Excellent.
Well, iPad works pretty good. I love that. So you should be okay.
Yeah, that's good. I didn't know about that, but there's a lot I don't know about. More and more every day, it seems.
I know. And even the things that I knew, I don't know anymore. I'm just saying.
I know what you mean.
You guys ready to see about jelly plates?
We are.
Yes,
Hey.
please.
Jelly plates come in all different sizes and shapes. I have, if you can see, this is a round one, a small round one. This is a really nice size for doing jewelry making. I have some 8 by 10 ones that my chef son cut with his knife for me, and that's what I have right here. This is about 4 by 5. Our tendency as clayers and crafters is to buy the biggest one we can. Don't do that, because then you have all this beautiful real estate and you're trying to get all this clay to, take up all this paint that you have on there. Just buy a small one. You don't need any bigger than 3 by 5 for most of our work. Jelly plates it's like real soft, like gelatin. And there's plastic on both sides. You want to keep your plastic because you need to protect this. So I use, in a style that I do, very expensive brushes, as you can see. These are kids' watercolor brushes. And this is just acrylic paint. I always say inexpensive acrylic paint, right? I'm going to take a tiny bit of that and just kind of swirl it on here. Less paint is way better than more paint. But if you get too much, you just take some off. Now I'm going to take my sheet of clay. I'm doing both hands, and I'm kind of doing all these different ways because otherwise you can get finger voids. And see, I just get really cool swirls through it. Now, if I wanted to fill some areas in, I could just drop that on there. This paint is super thin layers on there. Then a baby wipe to clean it. Now I'm going to take my second color. And do the same thing. You can add as many colors or layers to this as you want to. Now, I could also take my brayer, which happens to be right here. Bray this on. Take my etch and pearls and dot through it. You can do all kinds of ways to put textures and patterns on there. So now I've got some circles going on through there too. Can you see them? Oh, that's kind of fun. Wow, I really like those colors together. I just grab stuff. I'm gonna like this piece, yay. Then my baby wipe immediately clean this thing. And I always show people this. This is it's you get them, it's what you're, it's a baby wipe keeper basically. Can you see it? This is a weighted top that sits on top of the bag of them. So now I can take one out one-handed. I don't have to use two hands. And then the other thing I can do, because this top is self-closing and slams down on it, is I can take my used baby wipe and just toss it back in there. And I'll be able to use that same baby wipe tomorrow. I think that's great. And then I'm going to put one more color on here. And say, for instance, I get too much of this color. I'm like, ooh, that's too much. Just take your baby wipe and wipe it out of the center. And then redo it to whatever you want. Let's see what this is going to do on there. See how I'm getting all those great textures and colors in there now? Now, once this is dry, I can silk screen over that. I can transfer over that, or I can use it just as it is. But there is so little paint on there that I can actually get a transfer to go right over that and grab. And then of course, final thing is clean that puppy. Put your plastic back on. And there's so many different ways of using jelly plates. It's not even funny. But what happened was I was teaching in a stamp store in Santa Fe, and I was walking around the store and I saw them on the bottom shelf and I go, hey, what are these? She says, oh, they're jelly plates for mono printing. And she showed me some stuff and I went, well, then why aren't we mono printing on clay? She goes, oh my God. So we started doing it, and that's how that happened. And I'll show you some, these are some pieces that I made just screwing around. This is that ivory clay. And you can see that I've mono printed with a jelly plate, the colors behind it, and then the black is a transfer over it. Is that better? So there's three colors in there. There's the teal, there's a bronze color, and then I always end with a gold color. And then those scrap pieces I had one day sitting around. And you guys know I do transfers with laser, black and white laser prints, and I use hand sanitizer to transfer it, right? So when this COVID thing started and everybody was in a panic to buy hand sanitizer, I looked around, I had like 4 big bottles of it. And my brother calls me up in a pack. He goes, we don't have enough hand sanitizer. I go, oh, don't worry. I got you covered. I got plenty. So this is really fun to do too. Where's my piece? I can use that one. Okay. And what I'm going to do, this is what happens in Southern California when you live at the beach. Corrosion and rust is a part of life. Occasionally I'll bust out my Buff Daddy and clean them. So I'm going to cut some pieces off here. And because this is kind of a little bit thicker piece, this is still around a number 2 or 3 probably. I'm going to stick these on there. Do I have any more interesting pieces over there? God, I love scrap clay. And, you know, I'm pretty much paid with clay and supplies. So it's not like I have to be chintzy with my clay. It's not about that. It's about enjoying using the scraps and being creative. Okay, give me one more little one. There we go. So I'm going to put these on there. Then I'm going to take a piece of patty paper behind me. And patty paper is like the wax paper. It's not the plastic kind. I'll put that on top. This is a coffee tamper on Amazon. And I'm going to push straight down on it. See how cool that looks? Because those were thicker pieces, when I pressed down, the base color comes around the edges and frames it. And that's how I did. I just had it. Okay, Kyla, what do we do with it? Is it under here? Ah, there we go. So it kind of looks like pieces cut from an old map by doing that. So then this piece I can take and do a laser, you know, do a transfer to. You want me to transfer real quick?
Sure.
Okay. Hello, transfer. Cool. All my transfer art is on that that super secret link you'll see down at the bottom, since transfer art. I put all of it up there. So if you guys have laser printers, you can go nuts. I took my scissors to the other room, didn't I? Okay, we'll just cut it with this. Give me this guy. And these particular images I did with a kaleidoscope app on my tablet, and then collage them together in Photoshop. It's kind of fun. Ideally, your paper should not be bigger than your clay, but of course, do as I say, not as I do, right? Hand sanitizer. Soak the whole paper. And I usually do this on a piece of wax paper, but that's okay. And where is my, these guys, these rubber chisels, I love them for silk screen, and I love them for doing transfers, because I can just rub across here to help get all the air out. And you can see that you can see through the transfer right now. So then you just like talk loud and look at other things while that's drying. So let me show you some things here. I have my friends all call this my dragon hoard. This is like all my finished pieces that I just throw in a pile. This is that Sculpey iridescent clay. And I suck at doing that. What is that called? Mica Shift? Mica Shift in this iridescent clay is unbelievable. You see that?
How is iridescent different from mica clay?
It's
I mean, it looks like mica clay.
because it's really translucent. And the instead of the mica that's in there is super fine, and it's kind of like multicolored even.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a different animal for sure. I was surprised. I love it when they send me stuff. They go, here, play with this. Do something. And then I had to figure it out. And you guys know how to do the terrazzo like this, right? Chop up the little fine bits. But here's my tips for that. Put your bits, chop them up on a piece of this patty paper or a piece of paper. And then put another piece on top and press straight down with your coffee tamper. Don't swirl it or anything because it's going to smear those bits. And always, when you take the top paper off, look at the bottom because the bottom's going to be the better. Always. I don't know. It's something to do with the pressure, I think. Okay. Are you drawing over here? This is a do as I say, not as I do moment here. Oh. Oh,
Yes.
okay. I can't plug that in there. Can I plug it in down here without blowing a circuit?
I'll be there.
Okay.
7.5 pounds. She's a little girl.
Okay, once your paper it looks like it's back to being opaque and it's dried out a little bit, reapply. And we can test it to see. Oh, it's a good day, folks. Can you see this?
That is fantastic.
That is amazing.
That's a good day.
Amazing.
That is a good day. And of course, if you get a bubble in it and it doesn't quite take, just lay it back down before you pull it all the way off and take your coffee tamper and rub it or use your finger and put a little bit of heat on there. But look at how much depth that jelly print underneath adds to it.
Yes. Thank you for that tip. That is excellent.
Jelly plates are really fun. And it's a tiny bit of clay or a tiny bit of paint on those things. Tiny, tiny bit. And you saw it didn't take it very long to dry on there because there was so little paint on there. And that my transfer just goes right over it. No problem. And it just adds so much depth to it. I love doing transfers and I love doing jelly plates. In fact, I'm going to be doing a Craft Art EDU one pretty soon on jelly plates and clay, just for that reason. Oh, and I started to say, I can use the same bar of clay, the same sheet of transfers, and have two different experiences on 2 different days. One day, it'll be like today where boom, no problem. I could do this tomorrow and it's going to be a battle. I've done it on hot days, dry days, cold days, damp days. It has nothing to do with it. It's just like clay is, you know, some days you have good days and some days you have bad days. Same thing happens with this. This just happened to be
a good day. Because that was only 2 applications and it came out. But I did cheat and use my heat gun just to warm it up a little bit because it's 61 degrees in here, so it's not that warm. But now I can make all kinds of cool things with that. Isn't it pretty? And I can say I meant to do that, huh? And I feel good. I have paint on my hands. That always makes me feel good. Paint or clay. Any other questions while I'm out here? Oh, I wanted to show you this. I was talking earlier about Jane Dwyer's channel bracelets. See how beautiful these are? All the shapes and sizes in here. Look at some of these are teeny tiny and others are just nice and wide. Oh, and look at this one. I love this one. They're going to be fun. So her Etsy site is called Paper Moon Jewelry. And what did I pay for this? Like $44 for, I think, 14 bracelet blanks. I'm going to have fun with those. Let me look tool wise at what I have. Oh. I mentioned earlier when I showed you something and I said I made the ear wires.
Yes.
This is what I use. This is made by Artistic Wire, and there's all different kinds of shapes and sizes for these. Do you want me to do one real quick?
Yes, please.
Okay. How do you guys like my new setup out here? This is pretty slick, huh?
Nice.
It is. This camera, and the nice thing is my tablet and sees the camera right away. So I just switch where my video goes. I can toggle back and forth between my tabletop and my face screen. And then I can see what's going on my tablet right in front of me. And all that equipment's on my Sends Cool Tools page. Wire. That's what I was going to do. I was like, what am I doing? Wire. Wire. I knew where my wire was because I had a label on my drawer that said wire. Okay. Wire bending 101. I always refer to it as the dark ages. The couple years that Sculpey stopped producing their regular clay and they tried to do the studio clay model with the artist lady. And they fired all of their designers because we didn't want to do training from a painter on how to do clay and do supposedly her method when they were actually having us create the designs for them. But anyway, so when that happened, I started playing more with wire and actually did some projects for a wire magazine. So one of the things you need to do with wire is harden it by pulling on it, which is what this guy does. You ever see these in the store?
Yes.
And it straightens it and it also pulls it, so it's going to harden it a little bit for me. Then on all these jigs, there's a place on the bottom that you put your wire in from, and you bend it on the back to hold it. And then I'm going to bring it up around this little guy here, this little triangle. I like to go in this slot. Then you bring it around. Okay. Now when I cut it, I'm going to cut about right here and right here. And these are not my wire cutters, but I can't find my wire cutters because my wire cutters are probably up with the rest of the jigs. And now I can take my round nose pliers. Seriously, what's going on in this drawer? Come on. And make my bail. And there we go. And normally when I do this, I use 2 pieces of wire and I shape both ear wires at the same time. So then I know that they're going to both be the same size. And then there's little tiny. Yeah, this is my pin vise that I said I have from Citadel that I love. And I have a bunch of little tiny drill bits in here, boy. And then I forget what these are called. Cup
burrs.
Cup burrs. Thank you. That word came to me, but I was like not getting it all the way.
Syndee, what gauge wire did you use?
This was probably too big for ear wires, but I just
Okay.
grabbed it.
Okay.
It's 18 gauge.
Oh yeah, that's a little thick.
Yeah. I have one friend that likes for me to make her 18 gauge ones. Oh, that's too big for that one. This goes in my regular one. There we go. And the great thing about this pin vise is it comes with this set of drill bits that are ideal for what we do. And I don't think either of these are going to fit in here. Nope. So anyway, you take your cup burr and put it in your drill, and then you can finish off this wire, make it nice and smooth for the ears. But the advantage of doing this is that, first of all, you can use different colors of wire. And there's all kinds of different shapes of these wire benders too. From Artistic Wire, you can make all different kinds of designs with it. And then the other thing is, of course, you can turn it. So I can turn my eye pin whichever way I need it to go to. So that's my crash course in making your ear wires. I know there's a lot of people that go, I just make them by hand. And it's like, well, that's great, but I'm not a wire bender, I'm a clayer. But I like to use wire. And that's a super fast way to do it. It's just like painting. I suck at painting, but I'm also picky at painting, like walls and things. I suck at doing wire, but I'm really picky about it too. So these work out great for me. And then I had to figure out something cool to do with this sheet. It's so neat. So it's giant, like, oh my God, why didn't I make it bigger? Why didn't I make it thicker? Why didn't I use a better color? We all do that, right? Oh, do I know where it is? It's over here, right? You guys know what this is? This is what I use to stamp with. Because I take my sheet of clay, I put it on a piece of paper, I put another paper on top. Usually I just take a piece of computer paper and fold it and put the clay in between. I put my stamp on it before I put the top piece on. And then I put this on it and I put it on the floor here, the cement floor, and I step on it from all four sides. And then I get a perfect deep stamp impression that I haven't had to like push on my hands and my table and everything with. And stamping is like wire bending for me. I suck at stamping, but I'm picky about it. So I have a big Trex deck in the back and we just added to it. So this is actually a piece of Trex. I have all these scrap pieces that I have that I use for it. I also use a smaller piece here to push down on my cutters instead of using my hand. And then that way I get a straight, even sides on my pieces that I cut out because I'm not toggling with my hand with it. And so I use that for that too. What am I gonna make with this? Ooh. Ooh. Is it that one? No. Now I don't see enough of the image with that. I'm gonna have to use like a round. Wow, that would be cool. Can you see it? That would be cool. Oh, you know what? Where's my gray? Notice how you can see it better when I put it on the gray? I could do that. I could do something like that. This is going to be a fun piece to play with, but I just love how all the textures and colors you can add with the jelly plate there. So cool. And of course, that's my favorite cinnamon. Okay, any other questions while I'm out here at my table? Have I worn you all out with too much information? That's my usual modus operandi.
Never.
You have given us a lot to think about.
Yeah, I know.
This is fun.
It's always fun coming out to the clay table, isn't it?
Yes. And I have recorded everything so that we can, I'll try to figure out a way to post it for the group.
And can you also post all the links to your website and all that? I tried to take a screenshot of it, but it was nice to just click on it and get to
Sure.
it.
Can I send that, Bob, can I send that to you and you can?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Send me and I'll send it
And
to the group.
yeah, and your resources too, that bracelet one and whatever other.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll put the individual links when I send it to Bob for my page about the Citadel paints and my page about, I think I have one about jelly plates. And again, how you get to, all the super secret stuff on there. And you'll see my transfer artwork on there too. And the paper that I use to transfer with is hammer mill copy paper.
Okay.
The reason for that is because hammer mill is still a full fiber paper. I discovered quite by accident that I would go to the copy places and I would take a piece of clay with me and some hand sanitizer, and I would make one print and then I would try to print with it, transfer it. Because I can tell immediately when a copier was low on toner because you get kind of a brown transfer. But I was in, I think, Staples and I got nothing. I couldn't get anything out. And I was rubbing the paper because, sometimes you can rub down through the paper and get the transfer, I came across plastic. And so I looked around and they very proudly use recycled paper. And it made sense to me that recycled paper has a very thin sheet of plastic that they bond the recycled paper fibers to either side. And so of course the hand sanitizer is not going to permeate to get that ink. So Hammermill, I know, is still a full fiber paper, and the copy paper, I used to buy more expensive Hammermill paper, but the copy paper works just fine. And you can get it on Amazon. Okay, I'll get those links to Bob to get out to you guys, okay?
Thank you, Cindy.
And you
Thanks,
guys
Mike.
all stay safe and dry and warm and everything over there, all right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Are you guys just,
Thank
is
you,
it just
Cindy.
about, so now it's gonna be flooding, right? As the snow and the ice melt?
No, we-
I don't think there's that
no,
much
no,
snow and ice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, our sun burns it up pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we
And
get, yeah,
when are the temperatures supposed to go back up? Are you almost out of it?
It's supposed to
We-
go up today.
yeah,
Oh,
we are
good.
out of
Yeah.
it. Yeah. I'm not sure if we're gonna have freezing overnight. I don't think so. I think this is it.
God, I hope so.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's supposed to not be freezing after this for a while. And the
Yeah.
roads are
Yeah.
clear.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
For Houston, we're 60 degrees. We're not going to freeze overnight. Food and water is a problem. They're saying it may be 6 weeks before the stores get back to normal.
Wow.
But right now, a lot of people are fighting broken pipes.
Yeah.
You know, and we've all lost plants and other things. So
Well, and there's still boil water advisories in places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not fun.
Amazing. Amazing.
We
Mhm.
persevere.
That's right. It's Texas. You guys persevere.
Yeah.
I can't wait to come back and visit.
we'd love to.
We
have
can't
you-
wait for that to happen either.
Well,
Yeah,
thanks
let's
very
work
much for
something out.
sharing all this with us.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank
Really
you so
enjoyed
very
it.
much.
Well,
Yeah,
you know where to
thank you.
find me now. So, just say, have Bob say, hey, come in and show us what you're doing. I got my system down now.
Great.
Really, it's good. Thank you.
Yeah. If I can find my pin, I'll switch back. Switch. Huh. I hit it and it goes, there we go. Oh, wrong camera,
What are we
facing
looking
the
at?
wrong way.
Well, if anyone has ideas or things they would like to see next month, let me know. I will be putting something together in the next week or two for what we're going to be doing in March. If this is the way the guild's going to meet for a while, then this is how we're going to meet. So,
Well, thanks for doing this, Houston.
It works
It's
pretty
awesome.
well.
And you
Yeah,
know
man.
what? Like our guild is talking about continuing with a hybrid even when we can meet in person again, because we have people from all over the country that are joining on our guild Zooms, and they want to continue doing that. They want to pay dues and join the guild, but do it remotely. And I think in some ways it might be a good thing for us all.
True.
Yeah.
There's quite a few people talking about doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have the church we meet at has a giant TV in the room we meet that we've used before. So, it'll be possible for us to do it that way. And I think we're going to probably continue that way for a while and see what happens.
Right?
Definitely. All righty, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Well, thank you folks for joining us.
Yeah, good to see everybody.
It
Yeah,
is good to hear that people are doing well and we have weathered the storm.
yeah.
Not just a matter of getting back to normal or
And
whatever.
vaccinated.
Yes,
Well, some of us maybe, but it's also good to just see clay. I haven't seen, I mean,
Yeah.
except for what I'm doing in a long time. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
yes.
good.
Well, I need to get
Okay.
going, but this was a lot of fun. Good to see everybody.
Good to see you
Yes.
too.
Okay, bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye, Bob. Bye, bye,
Bye-bye. Thank
everybody.
Bye, Laura. Yeah, Sandy, if there's something you want to see, let me know. But we've got all kinds of demos we can do.
Okay. Yeah. And I'd be interested in getting the recording because I missed the beginning of this one. So thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
Glad to. Bye.
Bye.